About President Trump's end goal and where this is all heading. Trump says Maduro is a narco-terrorist, and this is all about stemming the flow of drugs into the U.S., although Venezuela is not the main supplier of illicit drugs into the U.S. But members of both parties say this is really about regime change. Trump denies that, but he has been blunt, saying he thinks Maduro's days are numbered. He wants him gone. And Trump is putting enormous pressure on Maduro with a huge show of force in the region, his continued deadly strikes on alleged drug boats, and now this, seizing this oil tanker. It's all intended to squeeze Maduro even further. But it's unclear where this is ultimately going. It's been a month since Trump said he had sort of made up his mind about next steps, but since then he has offered little clarity. And all of this coming as Venezuelan opposition leader Marina Machado is now in Oslo after accepting the Nobel Peace Prize, her first public appearance in 11 months. And just moments ago, she confirmed the U.S. did assist her with her travel there.
What if I told you that right now, just beyond America's southern horizon, a quiet standoff is building into one of the most dramatic shows of military force we've seen in years? And what if I told you that the United States, under former President Donald Trump's renewed influence, is signaling something far bigger than a regional dispute, something that could redraw power lines in the Western Hemisphere? Tonight, we go inside a moment that is sending shockwaves through international observers and raising urgent questions for millions of Americans watching around the world. Because when the United States steps up pressure on a foreign government with overwhelming force, history tells us it's never just a display, it's a message. Trump's posture toward Venezuela has always been aggressive, but what's happening now is different. This time, it's not just sanctions, diplomatic pressure, or harsh speeches. It's vessels, aircraft, intelligence assets, and strategic deployments moving into position. It's a calculated reminder to Nicolas Maduro that Washington has not forgotten the crisis inside his country, the collapsing economy, the mass migration, the political repression, the humanitarian disaster. But behind these strategic moves lies something much deeper, the question of American power and how far the U.S. is willing to go to reshape the future of a nation sitting atop some of the world's largest oil reserves. Let me ask you this: how much do you think the American public truly understands about Venezuela's significance, about why every administration, Republican or Democrat, has seen Caracas as a geopolitical priority? And do you believe a military show of force can change the direction of a country so deeply entrenched in political turmoil? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is just beginning and the world is watching. Right now, satellite images, intelligence reports, and official briefings point to increased U.S. presence near Venezuelan territory. It's not an invasion, it's not a war, but it's something unmistakable: strategic pressure, the kind of pressure designed to squeeze Maduro's inner circle, embolden the opposition, and signal to foreign players like Russia, China, and Iran that their influence in the region is being challenged directly. And make no mistake, these countries have invested heavily in propping up Maduro's regime. So when America flexes its muscles, it isn't just Venezuela reacting, it's a global triangle of rival interests shifting uneasily.
Trump's message is simple. The United States is willing to act, but the implications are anything but simple. A large-scale show of force can deter aggression, but it can also inflame it. It can stabilize a crisis or trigger a new one. And Americans watching right now have every right to ask, where is this heading? What's the next step? And how far could this go? Inside Venezuela, the situation remains explosive. Shortages of food and medicine continue to cripple families. Millions have fled the country, creating one of the largest migrations in the Western Hemisphere. Maduro clings to power through military loyalty and foreign support. Opposition leaders struggle to unify, and everyday Venezuelans are caught in a suffocating reality with no clear path forward. So when Trump amplifies pressure, many Venezuelans see it as a possible lifeline, but others fear it may spark retaliation, violence, or further suffering. And here's the crucial part. The U.S. military posture isn't just about Venezuela. It's also about signaling resolution to allies in Latin America who have grown uncertain about Washington's long-term leadership. Countries like Colombia, Brazil, and Panama are watching closely, gauging how far the United States is prepared to go to uphold stability in the region. American credibility is on the line, and every movement of a ship, Every deployment, every intelligence leak echoes far beyond Venezuelan borders. Let's talk about what this massive show of force actually looks like in operational terms. We're seeing increased naval patrols, surveillance flights, and rapid response units positioned closer than usual. These operations serve multiple purposes: monitoring illicit trafficking routes, deterring foreign military advisors, and gathering intelligence on Venezuelan troop movements. It's a layered strategy designed to tighten pressure without crossing into direct conflict. But history tells us that brinksmanship can be unpredictable. Small miscalculations can trigger large consequences, and when military assets from rival powers are in close proximity, every maneuver becomes high stakes. Let me ask the viewers right now, do you think this approach is the right one? Should the United States use overwhelming force to pressure a regime accused of human rights abuses, electoral fraud, and economic collapse? Or should diplomacy take priority, even if it means slower progress? Your comments matter, not just for debate, but because this is the kind of foreign policy question that often divides Americans sharply. Here's something most people don't know. Venezuela's crisis isn't just about politics or humanitarian tragedy. It's about global strategic competition. Russia has supplied military equipment, advisors, and political cover to Maduro. China has invested billions in infrastructure projects and oil deals. Iran has helped Venezuela bypass sanctions by supplying fuel and refining support. When Trump escalates pressure, he isn't pushing against one government, he's pushing against a coalition of America's strategic adversaries embedded inside the Western Hemisphere. This is why U.S. officials describe the situation as a test of influence. If America backs down, rivals gain ground. If America pushes too hard, conflict escalates. And somewhere inside that tightrope is the future of a nation that once held tremendous economic promise. But the big question remains, what is Trump's endgame? Is it regime change? Is it forcing Maduro to negotiate? Is it restoring democracy and stabilizing the region? Or is it a broader message, a show of American resolve as part of a global strategy? Washington insiders say Trump views Venezuela not just as a crisis, but as an opportunity to reassert U.S. dominance in Latin America. He believes strong pressure can force outcomes that years of diplomacy fail to achieve. Critics warn this approach risks humanitarian fallout. Supporters argue it's the only way to break Venezuela's entrenched power structure. But neither side denies one fact: a massive U.S. show of force sends a signal the world cannot ignore. And this brings us to something every viewer should reflect on. How far should the United States go? Should America flex its military strength to defend democratic values abroad? Or should it step back, avoid escalation, and let regional players lead? These aren't abstract questions. They shape foreign policy, military budgets, diplomatic relations, and ultimately the reputation of the United States itself. Meanwhile, Venezuelans living in the United States, many of whom fled persecution, are watching closely. For them, this isn't a geopolitical story, it's personal. It's about families separated by borders, loved ones still suffering under dictatorship, and the hope that one day Venezuela will rebuild itself into a stable, prosperous nation. Many of them support strong U.S. action. Others fear their homeland may become a battleground for larger powers. Their voices reflect the deep complexity of this crisis. As we continue this investigation, remember that the situation is fluid. Military movements change, diplomatic channels open and close, intelligence shifts, and international actors adjust their strategies in real time. The only thing guaranteed is uncertainty. In Part 2 of this report, we're going deeper into what U.S. intelligence believes Maduro will do next, whether Russia and China will escalate their support, and how this showdown could impact energy markets, migration flows, and regional stability. We'll also examine the risk of miscalculation, the kind of small incident that can trigger a much larger confrontation. Before we go, let me ask you directly, do you believe Trump's show of force will pressure Maduro into negotiation, or will it provoke more aggression? Will it stabilize the region or destabilize it further? Comment your thoughts below. Your voice matters in this national conversation.
Before we move forward, I want you to picture something: a foreign regime under pressure, global power circling, alliances shifting, and the United States signaling that patience is running thin. This is the atmosphere surrounding Venezuela tonight, as Trump intensifies pressure with an unmistakable military presence. And in this part, we're diving deeper into what this new phase means, not just for Venezuela, but for the entire Western Hemisphere. Right now, intelligence analysts are tracking a complex web of developments. U.S. naval operations have increased, not only near Venezuelan waters, but throughout key maritime corridors. Surveillance aircraft continue to sweep the skies, gathering real-time data on troop movements, infrastructure vulnerabilities, and foreign military activity inside Venezuela. These actions aren't random, they're coordinated, they're layered, and they are designed to tighten a strategic vice around Maduro's government. But behind all these maneuvers is a critical question. What does the Trump administration believe will happen next? To understand the stakes, we must examine Maduro's likely response. Venezuela's leader, isolated but not alone, depends heavily on foreign allies. Russia provides military hardware and advisors. China supplies loans and economic support. Iran offers fuel and covert assistance. These partnerships allow Maduro to resist American pressure in ways that past leaders could not. So the question becomes, will increased U.S. force deter him or push him deeper into the arms of America's rivals? Inside intelligence briefings, one concern keeps resurfacing: the possibility of miscalculation. When military assets from major powers operate near each other, even a single misunderstanding, a misread radar signal, a misinterpreted aircraft maneuver, a naval vessel crossing too close, can escalate into confrontation. No one wants that outcome. Not the United States, not Russia, not China. But history shows that geopolitical tension often creates unpredictable moments, and viewers watching right now should ask themselves, how fragile do you think this situation really is? Do you believe the U.S. and its rivals can avoid a dangerous mistake? Let's move inside Venezuela itself, because the ground reality there will shape everything that happens next. The humanitarian crisis continues to worsen. Hospitals lack basic supplies. Electricity blackouts cut off entire neighborhoods for hours. Inflation remains astronomical. Many Venezuelans live in a daily struggle for survival, unsure where their next meal is coming from. When Trump applies pressure, some see hope for change, but others fear that increasing tension may intensify suffering before any solution arrives. Maduro's government is aware of these fears, and he uses them strategically. Every time the United States escalates pressure, Maduro tells his people that foreign powers are threatening Venezuelan sovereignty. He frames U.S. actions as imperial aggression, rallying loyalists and tightening control. His regime has mastered the narrative of external threat, and America's show of force gives him fresh material. This is why strategists warn that military pressure, if not paired with diplomatic coordination, may inadvertently strengthen Maduro's propaganda. But Trump's goal isn't narrative, it's leverage. His administration believes Maduro won't negotiate unless he feels real, undeniable pressure. They believe a visible American presence forces Venezuela's power structure, military leaders, oil executives, political elites, to reconsider their loyalty. And this is where the strategy becomes psychological. When foreign backers like Russia and China see increasing U.S. involvement, their calculations change too. They must decide, how far are they willing to go to protect Maduro? How much risk are they prepared to absorb? Let me ask you, the viewer, do you think Russia and China will escalate? Or do you believe they've already reached their limits in Venezuela? Share your thoughts, because your perspective is a part of a larger conversation Americans are having right now about global competition and the future of U.S. influence. As U.S. pressure increases, one area becomes especially sensitive: energy resources. Venezuela's oil reserves are enormous, among the largest in the world. Control over these reserves is not just an economic advantage, it's a geopolitical weapon. Nations that align with Maduro do so partly because they want access to that oil. Trump understands this. That's why some analysts say the United States isn't just applying pressure, it's contesting influence over a resource-rich region that rivals consider strategically valuable. Energy markets are already responding. Even the rumor of U.S. action can affect global oil prices. A military buildup near a major oil producer injects uncertainty into markets, influencing everything from U.S. gas prices to foreign investment decisions. So when Trump flexes American power, it's not just Venezuela reacting. It's businesses, industries, and governments worldwide calculating the risks. Now let's examine the regional impact, because neighboring countries have a direct stake in this showdown.
Colombia, Brazil, Guyana, and Caribbean nations are watching carefully. They face migrant flows from Venezuela, border tensions, and economic instability linked to Maduro's government. Many of them quietly support stronger U.S. pressure, believing it could force necessary change. But they also fear escalation, because if conflict erupts, they will feel the consequences first. Diplomatic cables reveal growing concern that Venezuela's instability could spill over, creating security risks in the region. Armed groups, smuggling networks, and criminal organizations have taken advantage of the crisis, expanding their activities along borders. If the United States intensifies military pressure, these groups may exploit the chaos. This is why regional governments are urging caution, even while acknowledging a need for a solution. And here's something Americans often overlook. Venezuela's crisis has created one of the largest displacement waves in modern history. Millions have fled to neighboring countries and beyond. Entire families have walked across borders, crossed rivers, or boarded unsafe boats seeking survival. When Trump applies pressure, many Venezuelans hope change will come, but they also fear that instability could worsen their already fragile situation. This human dimension is often lost amid political debate, but it remains central to the story. Let's talk about the domestic U.S. political angle, because Trump's actions don't happen in a vacuum. They resonate with his foreign policy message: strength, unpredictability, and unwavering pressure on adversaries. To his supporters, this display demonstrates American resolve. To his critics, it risks destabilizing a delicate region. And to undecided Americans, it raises the question: what role should the United States play in Latin America's future? Should America intervene more deeply, or step back and allow regional powers to lead? This debate will shape U.S. elections, foreign policy strategies, and public opinion for years to come. And your view, yes, yours right now, is part of that national discussion. So, here's the question. Should the United States continue this show of force, or should it pivot towards negotiation? Should it escalate or pause? Should it prioritize regional stability or regime change? Your comments will help shape how this story is understood. Now, behind closed doors, intelligence officials are mapping out scenarios. One scenario involves Maduro negotiating under pressure, agreeing to limited reforms in exchange for sanctions relief. Another involves a gradual power transition supported by international guarantees. And then there's the third scenario, the one analysts hope to avoid, where foreign powers reinforce Maduro, escalation increases, and the region enters a prolonged standoff with no clear exit. Trump's challenge is balancing strength with restraint. Too much force could provoke backlash. Too little pressure could allow Maduro to entrench further. The path forward requires precision, patience, and strategic clarity, qualities that are tested in moments like this. In the final part of this series, we will explore how this showdown may shape the next decade of U.S.-Latin American relations, what experts believe is the most likely endgame, and what risks Americans should prepare for as geopolitical competition intensifies in their own hemisphere. We'll break down the role of Russia and China, the future of Venezuela's oil economy, and whether Trump's show of force could reshape the balance of power in the region.